So, as I begin the sermon, I want to invite us to create a little bit of this moment together. There's so many mixed messages, so many emotions around anger. So, I want to invite you to let this be a moment to name what angers, what enrages, what really ticks us off. So, help me, if you would, create a little shared moment of anger, recognizing that sorrow and fear are close companions with this. So, if this is more than you can do, just pause and breathe. There's plenty in the room. I have faith. There's an act of faith, right? All right. What enrages you now? And I want to repeat it, so please be sure to speak up. What enrages you right now? Bureaucracy. Oh my gosh. Boy, there's a universal truth. It's bureaucracy. Okay, what else? All right. Note how careful I tend to be with speaking politics. Trump and his cabinet and the oligarchs. No more quiet piggy, if I may say. No. Ask me about that later if you don't know what that's about. I'm sorry. What? I'm sorry. Chaos after chaos after chaos, COVID, and now this nonsense. Yes, thank you. Yes, Jean. The word unprecedented. Can we get a consensus on retiring the word unprecedented? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Just yes. What else? What else? Let's take people cutting you off on the road when there's no need for it. There we go. I want to know what a need for it moment might be. But no, well, yes, people cutting you off in traffic. Thank you. Boy, the little things, right? What else? The words you should. Oh, we just don't want to be shoulding on ourselves and each other, shall we? People who, I'm sorry, what? People who think their opinion is always the right opinion. Thank you, Dave. Yes. Racism. So you all are going to places where I had some script here in case you were shy, and you all are going off in other directions. I love this. Thank you. Thank you. Hmm? Misogyny, patriarchy, white supremacy. Let's just kind of have that list, shall we? Injustice. All right, let me add a couple. I'm sorry? Christmas decorations in October. Thank you. Honestly, Christmas decorations in September. Holy, oh my gosh, who thought of that model? Wrong. Although I do like the fact that we still have Halloween lights up and there is no Christmas coming soon at my house. So I'm just saying. All right, let me add a couple here. I'm going to bet you know these. We are angry. The children are afraid to go to school because of immigration, because of racism, because of violence. We are angry that our most vulnerable neighbors are frightened for their well-being, feared that they may be taken from the people they love, their daily lives, for being afraid to go outside thanks to racial profiling. We are angry that healthcare is impossibly expensive and deeply unjust, and that leaders sustain a worsening system. We are angry about the deaths of trans and gender expansive beloveds, the names of whom are being read around the world this week. We are angry about the cost of food, the cost of everything. We are angry that the wealthy keep becoming more so while we are here talking about buying ramen to fill the children's bellies. We are angry about an earth that may not be healthy enough for future generations. I'm sure there's more. There is so much with us and within us and around us. Given the upcoming holidays, it seemed like a good idea to unpack a little anger now before you get to the family gathering. This is a little equipping for the next couple of months. Let me invite you to consider, ponder, if you will. Where did you learn about anger when you were growing up? Where and how were the lessons around feelings, around emotions, around expression, particularly around anger? Where was that for you? Invite, invite you to a little bit of reflection. Dad, yeah, dad. Oh, there's a lot of dad. But boy, I feel for the dads, right? Where'd they learn that? Generations, right? Generations of anger. What were the first and lasting lessons? I know for me, anger I associated with outburst, with violence, with having kept a lid on things so long that it just exploded out, with being out of control. So the daily lesson, nature and nurture, was more about being nice, getting along. In my case, good New England Yankee family, ladylike. I mean, they were trying. Conflict avoidance. There's not much place for anger. There's no place for anger. I know for many of us, anger can be internalized, if anything, as poet Marge Piercy says. A good anger acted upon is beautiful as lightning and swift with power. A good anger swallowed, a good anger swallowed, clots the blood to slime. A good anger swallowed, clots the blood to slime. As much as I was raised with people who marched, who advocated, strong people, there's some strong people. Personal anger was kind of the null curriculum. There was the emergent voice of anger in white feminism. This was powerful. This was important. This was national. It was changing our world. And personal anger, not so much vocabulary and space. That's part of where I was coming from. I still find it a challenge to say, is that anger? Oh, look, that's anger. After all this time, I'm getting better at that, but it's taking time. It's also the case, based on gender, social location, race, and more, that some people had the liberty to express anger more than others. Does that sound true? Some people get to say, some people get to lash out, some people get to show up in anger in a way that others can't or won't or is a danger to them. So appreciate the children's story. There's a volcano in my tummy. And that might have been written for children, but boy, it's for everybody. It's kind of impressive. We haven't yet had a global catastrophe of anger blown up in the world, isn't it? How much is kind of probably repressed, suppressed, and depressed. It's also the case is that there's a lot of different kind of forms of anger, thank goodness. There's not just one vocabulary. Even if we've learned a primary language, there's many more. My colleague, the Reverend Sarah Smalley, kind of describes the ranges of the expression of anger. There's aggressive anger that lashes out, passive anger that internalizes and buries, and there's passive aggressive anger. Boy, we're really good in that one in our society, right? Passive aggressive anger, where one is outwardly agreeable, but shows anger through indirect action. It's where we have the conversation apart about intent versus impact. But then there's something called, she was calling it assertive anger. Assertive anger, something that is appropriately felt, managed, and communicated. Felt, managed, and communicated. Is experienced, recognized with thought, and then made some decisions are made about how to proceed. Black author Audre Lorde talks about this in her work. She talks about how Black women tend to be especially aware of the uses and perceptions of anger, how quickly a Black woman can be stereotyped and dismissed as angry when she is merely standing her ground. Audre Lorde unpacks the experience of anger and how it can be used in her essay, The Uses of Anger: Women Responding to Racism. Now, her understanding of anger and its impact is an entire other sermon series. But for now, I want to just include this as one to expand the diversity of voices, but to offer how she honestly and plainly addresses the value of anger and how essential it is to addressing racism. As Jan Richardson describes in the reading, anger helps locate what is important, what we value. She says, when anger walks into my life and sits down at the table, I try to remember to ask, what is anger trying to tell me? What's the invitation here? What choice can I make that will lead me beyond feeling powerless? Is there a step I can take that will transform anger into action for my own life, for the lives around me, and for the life of the world? As I was looking at models of anger, what I found particularly helpful was the reminder that anger is not a fixed state. It doesn't just show up and stay the same all the time. It has a cycle. It's got a trigger, negative thoughts, emotional, physical arousal, behavior response, and consequences. How I feel now isn't forever. And even when, and I say when, even when anger accumulates so it is always there, when it is always there, it still isn't in the same state all the time. And so, in the ebb and flow of the experience of anger, we can ask what Jan Richardson points out: what choice can I make that will lead me beyond feeling powerless, lead me beyond feeling trapped in a particular state of feeling? How can I transform anger into action? My Universalist colleague, the Reverend Doug Taylor, talks about this, that perhaps we amplify the potential for movement and action and management by combining values and emotions. He says, we need to pair up and even triple up our values so they can balance each other. So when you pair up your anger with compassion, you can move forward. To have compassion toward those with whom you are angry does not mean the anger goes away. This is not magic. This is not pushing aside. This is not calm down. It means you can do something with it rather than allow it to sit and fester. So we can pair anger with love, anger with compassion, anger and democracy, anger and inherent worth of all people, anger and freedom, anger and growing in body, mind, and spirit. Have it deployed into a righteous anger, perhaps. One of my favorite models for this, I was thinking about stories about anger. This is where my vocabulary is still developing. What story am I going to tell about anger? Ooh, Jesus. Let's talk about Jesus. And flipping tables in the temple. That one, that one sticks. That one has endured. From the book of Mark, chapter 11. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple area and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise through the temple courts. As he taught them, he said, "It is not written, is it not written, my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations? My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of robbers, a den of thieves." Jesus had gone to the temple to pray, probably to make a sacrifice and observant practice, and of part of the practice of how one engages in relationship with the holy. And so when he arrived there, instead of a way to do that with thoughtfulness and care, he found exploitation. He found exploitation and usury of the poor, of pilgrims. He found greed from those who controlled access to the temple and therefore access to religion, access to faith. As we are on the cusp of Advent and awaiting the birth of the baby Jesus, we are also preparing for the temple flipping teacher. We are also preparing for the table flipping teacher, the temple flipping teacher. I kind of like that too. The kind shepherd who is ticked off. The loving pastor also contains rage against the machine, against empire, against capitalism, against exploitation of the people, exploitation of the earth itself. Every year, every year I have to rethink and think again about what is the narrative about Christmas and wonder, what would Jesus do? I think he'd be fighting for SNAP benefits. He'd be showing up and offering spiritual care to those in detention centers, much like religious leaders offered a week ago in Chicago and were arrested and harassed for their trouble. Jesus would be calling on ICE agents to choose their humanity instead of putting children in zip ties. He would be calling out moral injury and calling us to moral imagination. Something to note about how important this table flipping moment is. While the story of Jesus' birth, the star, the shepherds, the angels, which I love every year, that story is pretty much in the book of Luke. Jesus in the temple is in all the Gospels. It's in all of them. They wanted it to stick. Progressive Christian minister Reverend Sue Kaler Arsenault asks, "What do we do with an angry Jesus?" She writes, "It would be so much simpler to follow the Jesus who is simply nice to everyone, who never questions economic, political, or religious systems. We are perfectly happy to accept Jesus as our shepherd, but we are far more uncomfortable when he has a whip in his hands and he overturns the tables. It's not comfortable." And it comes to mind also that we have this current increase in Christian nationalism, which is also about this powerful expression and is more has the muscular, masculine warrior Jesus. That's not this moment either. That's not the Jesus of the gospel. It's not the Jesus of the temple. It is anger, yes. It is power, yes. And it is deployed for the sake of justice and love and compassion. Reverend Kaler Arsenault continues. But if there was ever a time we needed this Jesus, this angry Jesus, it is now. Where is our anger at an economic system that does not provide a living wage to full-time workers? Where is our anger at gerrymandered political maps that systematically disenfranchise Black voters? Where is our anger at fossil fuel suppliers who have long known their impacts on the climate? Where is our anger at governments that target and fund the mass murder of civilians, of children in Ukraine, in Gaza? Where is our anger at religious systems that exclude and judge and demonize people because of their gender, their race, their sexual orientation, or their religion? Where? Where is our anger? If we shut down anger at injustice, if we shut down our anger when boundaries are violated, we diminish the prophetic divine spark within our hearts that can empower us to take action for good. Where is our anger? Do you feel it? Is it powering? Is it empowering? There is power there. There is power to love. There is power to act, power to make a difference. Bring anger with all that we find is important and essential, and it lets us move forward. If I may, the congregation just approved 4 social impact projects. If you need someplace to take that feeling, there are places. I will also say, I want to recognize and appreciate how Jesse brought out the physical and the feeling. I can offer something. These are crocheted bricks because Stonewall was a riot. And these can be thrown at anything. If you're needing a way, I have a ritual and a way. And it's not just about bricks, but these are good. I'm just saying. My colleagues and I were throwing these last week. It helped. There are so many ways to meet the moment of all that we are feeling, of all that we are harboring, of all that we are pushing down and don't know what to do with in our lives. Do not dismiss or set aside or say there is no place for anger. It has to be here because it is with us because we are human. When we let it, it can be so powerful. Let us draw on its power and our power to keep caring, to keep striving, to keep hoping, to bring fierceness to what we love and put that love into action in our close circles, in our neighbors, in our neighborhoods, and in our world. Let us claim that powerful force and move forward. Try to add that to a more healed and whole world. Amen.